Part 10, Chapter 22. A door slid open, and Captain Hoban walked through. He had a dazed look in his eyes, and Stan knew he could not have been awake for long. "You're early out of the hypersleep, Captain." "Yes, sir. I had my dial set to get me up before the crew, so I could pull myself together and have a talk with you." "I suppose it is time we had that," Stan said. "I want to thank you again for throwing in your lot with me. I don't know where this will end up, but I'm glad to be on this adventure with you." "Yes, sir. Could you tell me what it is exactly we're going to tell the crew?" Julie, seated nearby, said, "Yes, Stan. I'd like to know that myself." Stan nodded. "We'll give a slightly altered version of what's going on." "Are we on course then?" Hoban asked. "Yes. I fed the coordinates for AR-32 into the navigational computer." "AR-32. I think I've heard of that place," Hoban said. "Wasn't there some trouble there a while back?" "There was." "Then why are we going there, sir?" "We're pretty sure there's an alien super hive on that planet, which apparently won't support anything else. A biofarm ship has been in orbit around AR-32, and my information is that they have been illegally harvesting royal jelly." "Yes, sir, I understand. But what does that have to do with us?" "I have a right to my share in that matter," Stan said. "Julie and I are going to relieve them of some of their plunder. Royal jelly is like pirate's gold, Hoban. It belongs to whoever takes it." "Yes, sir. I don't have much trouble with that concept, but Gil might. What bothers me, sir, is, does that mean we're going to have to kill bugs?" "It could come to that," Stan said, "though it is not the primary intention of our expedition." "And might it not involve killing biofarm people, if we have to?" Stan stared at him. "Yes, it could come to that. I don't expect them to be too happy about our taking what they have come to regard as their own, but frankly, I don't much care what they feel. No one gives up pirate's gold easily. If they insist on making a fight out of it, well, we'll take care of ourselves." Hoban nodded, though he didn't look too happy. "I suppose that follows, sir. But I wish you had told me all of this beforehand." "Would you not have come?" Stan said. "Would you have seriously preferred to stay down and out in that crummy boarding house I found you in?" "No, I don't wish to be back there," Hoban said. "I'm just considering the situation." "Then think about this," Stan said. "This situation could make you rich. Julie and I intend to share our profits with you and the crew. They'll get a small percentage for the dangers they'll run. It won't be much out of our shares, but it will be more money than they ever saw before." "Sounds good, sir," Hoban said. But he was still worried. What good was it to be rich if you were also dead? The time was nearing to wake the crew from hypersleep. The flight was almost at an end. Their destination, the planet AR-32, was coming up on the screens, a glowing dot in the dark sky. Julie knew this would be her last time alone with Stan for a long time. There was a lot to do, a lot of last-minute details to attend to, and she didn't know when she and Stan would get some quiet time alone. Maybe not until they had finished the expedition, or, to call it by its true name, their raid. And that could take time. And if everything didn't go just right. Julie shook her head irritably. There was no sense in thinking about failure. Hadn't Shen Hui instilled that much in her? Chapter 23. When Julie came into the control room, Stan was seated in the big, padded command chair. He had taken an ampule of royal jelly from a dozen that were nested in the padded box on the nearby work table. He was holding the ampule up to one of the arc lights, twirling it between his fingers and admiring its bluish glow in the light. As usual, Julie was both attracted and repelled by the liquid and what it could do to Stan. Yet, she had been hoping they could spend this evening together, doing things instead of thinking about them. Sometimes she thought Stan allowed himself to have real experiences only for the pleasure of reliving them later, as he was able to do with the royal jelly. Why did he love that stuff so much? She knew it eased the pain of his disease, but it was more than just a remedy. He was using it as a drug. And Julie didn't approve of taking drugs. She hadn't tried the stuff herself. A well-trained thief allows nothing to dull her senses. Shen Hui and life itself had taught her this lesson. And yet, as much as she missed him when he launched himself into the unknown regions that the drug brought him to, a part of her went with him, because she knew how Stan felt about her. Returning the ampule to its case, Stan asked, "What did you think of Norbert's performance?" "He's ready," she said. "You've done an amazing thing, Stan. Created a robot alien good enough to fool the real ones." "Except for the pheromones," Stan pointed out. "You've taken care of that too. With the short-range zeta fields you've developed, plus the pheromone-altering qualities of the royal jelly, the aliens will think Norbert is one of them." Stan nodded. "Just like it was with Ari." Stan was referring to how his cybernetic ant, Ari, had been programmed to enter the colony of a similar-looking ant species, where the other ants accepted him as the real thing. "How close are we now, Stan?" Julie asked. Stan punched up the computer screen in front of him. Numbers flowed across it, and lines weaved in and out, and then held firm. "We're nearing the vicinity of AR-32, Stan told her. "It's time to get the crew out of hypersleep." "The adventure begins," Julie said softly. "That's right." Stan took out the ampule of royal jelly again. "We need a lot more of this stuff, and AR-32 has it for us. It's funny how a single substance can be both more valuable than diamonds and more necessary for life than water. More necessary for my life, anyhow." He swirled the little glass tube and watched the liquid flow. Then he looked at Julie. "You look very lovely tonight." She smiled back mockingly. Pretty as a shot glass, as they'd say in the Old West. No, I really mean it, Stan said. You know how I feel about you, don't you? Maybe I do, Julie said. But it's not because you ever talk about it. I've always been shy, Stan said. Abruptly, he swallowed the ampule. I'm going to lie down now, Julie. Let's talk more later. Without waiting for her answer, Stan shambled off to his small office, just to the right of the main control room entrance. Within it, a folding cot was built into the wall. He lay down on it now, without bothering to take off his glasses. With Xenozip, there was no habituation. Each time was like the first. It always amazed him just how quickly the stuff took effect. It was like no other drug he had ever tried, neither medical nor recreational. And Stan had tried them all. Alien royal jelly was neither a stimulant nor a soporific, though it had effects similar to both. Primarily, it was a way of gaining instant access to all parts of your own brain, a royal road to your own dreams and memories. With royal jelly, you could zoom in on your past like a skilled photographer zooming in on a detail, readjusting focus to bring up those images that had faded out. You could freeze the frame on what seemed like reality. You could see what you wanted to see, as often as you liked, and then step outside the frame and watch yourself in the act of seeing. Nor was that all it did. Royal jelly was a painkiller too, relieving the throb of the cancer that was shattering his life. The vial dropped from his fingers. It fell to the floor, taking no more than a fraction of a second to shatter on the deck. And in that microsecond, Stan watched it all happen again. Chapter 24. First came the rush. It seemed to move along his arteries, and Stan pictured himself, a tiny man in a canoe, adrift on the great red waters of his bloodstream. The vision exploded into 1,000 fragments, and in each fragment the scene was repeated. The fragments of his vision came together, like millions of diamond particles striving to become a diamond, and then exploded outward again, like a firework display arcing in all directions. He could hear a sound that was accompanying this, and he couldn't tell what it was at first. A deep-throated roar that could have come from no human source. At first, he thought it was the gods singing, great choruses of ancient gods wearing strange headdresses, some with the heads of ducks and turtles, some jaguars, some foxes. And near them, suspended in shining space, were other choirs of women gods, full-breasted Broomhildas, and slender naiads, and their song was full of sorrow and promise. As the ampule fell to the floor, Stan was already dozing fitfully. Tiny muscles in his eyelids jerked and twitched. REM sleep, but of a previously unheard of intensity. Dream sleep, but with awareness. Blue-green lights played across his face. It was a broad face with the beginning of a double chin. Light glinted off his glasses and threw a shadow on his small chin. He looked far younger than his 28 years, like a schoolboy again, coming back to the big old house where he had lived with his parents before the devastation wrought by the aliens. Again, he saw his stern father, the scholar, always with an ironic little Greek or Latin phrase on his lips, and his mother with her high forehead, flinty grey eyes, and hastily pinned up mass of dark blonde hair. Then he seemed to be walking down a long corridor. On either side, standing in niches like statues, were replicas of his parents at every age and in every mood. Stan could, in his imagination, freeze the frame, stop his parents in mid-track, and walk around them, inspecting them from every angle, and then start the tape of memory running again. All this while, the ampule was in mid-air. The ampule was still falling from his hand, and he could segue instantly from where he was to another memory. Himself, after class in high school, walking along beside the little brook that ran behind his home, thinking about everything under the sun except his homework assignments. Stan looked down on the work given to him by his teachers. He thought it was beneath his intellectual level, unworthy of his efforts. So disdainful was he of school that his parents feared he would not graduate. But he did graduate. There he was, at his own graduation, wearing an English schoolboy's suit his parents had bought him while they were attending a seminar in London. He had always hated that suit. He had looked damned silly next to the casual attire of the other boys. There were many scenes like that, ready for him to step into. But Stan wasn't in the mood for childhood memories. There were other things he wanted to look at. Other times, other people, places, things. And so he moved, the ampule still falling, moved as a spiritual presence down the spiraling, faintly glowing corridors of the years. And now he was a man, in his 20s, already a well-known scientist. And he was in the doctor's office, buttoning his shirt, listening dumbly as Dr. Johnson said, "I may as well give it to you straight, Dr. Myakovsky. You were correct in your surmise about these black marks on your chest and back. They are indeed cancers." "Is my condition terminal?" "Yes." The doctor nodded gravely. "In fact, you don't have much time left. A matter of months. I'm sorry, but it's best to give you the news straight. The condition, as I'm sure you know, is incurable. But its progress can be slowed, and we can ease some of the symptoms. I've already made out a prescription for the medicine we prescribe in such cases. And there is also this." The doctor held out a small plastic box. Within it, packed in foam rubber, were a dozen ampules of a bluish liquid. "This is Xenozip. Have you heard of it?" Stan nodded. "If memory serves, it is produced from the royal jelly of alien females." "That is correct," Dr. Johnston said. "I must tell you it is no cure for what you have, but it should relieve you of the symptoms. This stuff's illegal, and I shouldn't be giving you this, but it could be just what you're looking for." "Does it have much in the way of side effects?" The doctor smiled grimly. "It has indeed. That's why it hasn't received government approval yet, though many people still use it. Indeed, it has become the most sought-after consciousness-altering substance in existence. Although the effect is not invariable, it does give most people an intense feeling of well-being and competence. Others experience levels of their own being not normally perceived. Still others have an orgasm that seems to go on forever. At least I'm going to die happy. But of course, there were also the bad side effects. Some people had been known to go berserk on the drug, or to undergo personality changes so great that their own families didn't recognize them. Could that be happening in this case? And then he forgot his concern as the images swept him up again. There was so much to look at, so many memories, all nicely staged and lighted, waiting for him, the sole audience, to put them into motion. It was like owning all of the theaters in the world, and in each of them a different movie was playing, and each movie starred himself, Stan Myakovsky, in all of the scenes of his life. He glided past them, a ghostly presence in his own memories.